Today we're going to be talking about how you can earn income on your schedule, and it's only a little bit of a pyramid scheme.
3, 2, 1.
How's it going today, film crew? Today we are talking about freelancing. Yes, I know I said it's a little bit of a pyramid scheme, and I'll get to that in a minute. First, let's talk about how I got into freelancing. And yes, technically, even though I own my own company at Prairie Creative Co., I am technically just a freelancer. I operate and I bill my customers and I interact with my customers as such. I got into freelancing when I was laid off from my job in Edmonton, and I figured, you know what? Right now is the time to try and strike out on my own. And I was a little bit wrong. Looking back on it, I really wish that I had really pursued gainful employment, at least in a part-time capacity, with my whole heart instead of just kind of half-heartedly setting out some resumes and then freelanced in the side, because it was a very stressful experience, a very long experience, a very hard experience. In the end, it ultimately paid off, but there was a really good chance that it couldn't have. Which brings me to my very first tip on how to get into freelancing and actually being able to find the work, and that is start part-time. I know it is super easy to really want to give it your all and devote yourself 100% of the time, but freelancing is a super hard road to follow, and there is no magic formula. The things that I tell you today in this video might not actually work for you. There's a lot of variables involved. In this video, I'm going to try to give you 3 different ways that you can actually make freelancing a success. Despite the difficulties and despite what your overbearing parents might tell you, it is actually 100% worth it to try and make it on your own. Working and sitting under someone else's thumb is a way of the past, and it doesn't have to be that way anymore. You can be a successful freelancer with basic equipment. The first method that we're going to talk about is how I got into freelancing, and I'm going to call it the niche method. Basically, when I was in Edmonton, I found that it was incredibly competitive. There was a ton of other great videographers and editors out there doing the exact same things that I was trying to do and trying to make it their way. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's got to earn an income, but it was crazy competitive. But I realized in my hometown of about 6,000 people in the town and about another 10,000 outside of the town, there was no videographers in the area, not one. If you see a need, fill a need. Understanding that the area that you want to work is devoid of any kind of videography can also be a little bit of a curse. That usually means that the people that are in that area aren't receptive to a lot of new ways of doing things. And my biggest struggle when I first got into it was convincing people that, yes, social marketing is important to your business. Most people where I'm from just kind of expect people to just walk in the door as soon as they open the shop, and they never have to advertise outside of putting a $6 ad in the paper classified. But with enough time and with a great amount of support, which brings us back to that pyramid scheme point, I was actually able to build on the first couple of hard-fought videos and gain a steady supply of customers. And I say pyramid scheme because it is a pyramid of support. It is hard to do it on your own. We're going to be talking about networking a little bit more in the next video, but here's the basics. Put yourself out there. Nobody's going to hire you if they don't know that you exist. I started by cold emailing the crap out of people. Cold calls, emails, Instagram messages, Facebook messages. I bet you I sent about 250 different messages between Ponoka, Lacombe, Wetaskiwin, Rimbey, and I think I got 3 or 4 replies back. And I think of those 3 or 4, only 2 actually turned into customers right off the bat. But once I had completed those videos for those 2 customers out of the 250 some that I had emailed, the rest just started rolling in. It's a lot easier to find work when you've been doing work. This method is super specific and it might not work for you. You might not be able to move from where you are, or you're happy where you are. In which case, we move on to method number 2. Method number 2 we're going to call don't discount the internet. When I was first laid off, I went to Fiverr right away, but I was super discouraged right away when I saw the ungodly amount of competition on there. But within a couple of weeks, I actually got a message from somebody down in the States. I believe they were in Portland, and they needed somebody to do editing, which I fully have the capacity to do. So even though the competition is quite fierce and heavy, it is quite possible for you to be able to be found without having to pay for a premium Fiverr, without having to spend a lot of time ranking yourself at the highest of the list of freelancers in your particular set of skills. Outside of Fiverr, there's a ton of other freelancer platforms that you should definitely get yourself on. I even know people that have found work on Kijiji, so just get yourself out there. I know that it seems like the place that everybody is going, but they're going there for a reason. Fiverr didn't end up being super lucrative for me, and other than having those first 3 or 4 videos that I edited for the American fellow, it didn't actually end up panning out. But I know a lot of other videographers or editors that have gotten consistent work from platforms like Fiverr, so it's always worth a shot. The third method we're gonna call the backup guy option. There is a ton of media companies in Edmonton and in Calgary. When I say ton, like I mean an absurd amount. It seems like every day 2 or 3 new media companies are popping up. But if you go to their websites, a lot of these media companies are actually doing work. And they all have one thing in common. Sometimes they take on more work than they can handle. They represent themselves as such big companies, but really they're only 1 or 2 people, maybe at the most, who are trying to make themselves seem a lot more competitive in that freelance game. Circles back to the biggest point I'm probably gonna make in any of my videos is put yourself out there. Send messages, phone calls, Instagrams, Snapchats, smoke signals, whatever you want to all of these media companies and let them know that you're there, you're available, you have the skills and the knowledge and the tools and the expertise to handle a job that they might not have the time to handle. This method can take a while, but it is the one that is most likely to lead you to consistent work. Because if you get called up on a rush job or an overspilled job and you do great work, they're going to immediately put you down as somebody that they can consistently come back to. And in the end, you might decide that you want to work for them specifically instead of working under your own banner. Freelancing can come with a healthy amount of paperwork, and sometimes it is just easier to work for somebody else as an employee than try to make a go of it and do things like small business taxes. But now that you found the work using one of those 3 methods or something that you found worked for you, now we need to get into what do you need to keep succeeding. The very first thing is paperwork, paperwork, paperwork. I cannot stress this enough. I have known several people that have been completely screwed over by clients that they thought that they could trust simply because they didn't get something in writing. It is important to have a talent release contract, a location release, and a production agreement. Huge emphasis on production agreement. This is a little booklet of saving grace that you can find on the internet for free, and it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of heartbreak. A production agreement should outline 3 things: the work the client is getting, how much it's going to cost, and when that payment is due. This is critical because unfortunately, when you're first getting started, a lot of your jobs aren't going to cost enough to be worth taking to court. But it's the principle of the thing. And if you do want to take somebody to court, it is very, very important that you at least have that signed evidence that this was the agreed upon price that they were supposed to pay you. It might only be $500 or $1,000 or maybe even less than that. But that's the difference between eating one day and going without. Location releases and talent releases are just as important. A talent release basically stipulates that the person that you are shooting, whether they're a business owner or somebody in the background or an actor, understands fully what they're getting into and is fully agreeing for you to use their likeness. That way they can't come back on you later and say, I didn't allow myself to be in this. Yes, you did. I have your signature. And a location release will cover your butt and it'll cover the property owner's butt. In case something gets broken or somebody gets injured, it tends to keep both parties safe if the document is worded correctly. We're gonna dive into the nitty-gritty of the paperwork in another episode, but for now, let's move on to the next important point, which is the big T word, taxes. I know the first couple of customers that you got lined up, you've got $3,000 jobs lined up and you're feeling like you finally can buy that new matte box that you wanted. Unfortunately, it's really important to put some of that away every month and to keep track of how much you're spending for your business and how much income is coming in. The easiest way to do this, and every accountant is going to thank you, is just a simple spreadsheet. A spreadsheet keeps track of what comes in and what goes out. And at the end of the year, there are special accountants that will help with these sorts of businesses. Small business or freelancer taxes is a really difficult sphere to try to navigate, and I'm probably not the best one to try and explain it. But I will put a link to a video in the description below that really helped me when I first got started. Our final point is putting money back into your business. Yes, as a freelancer, you are technically a business, and you're going to need equipment to support that business. My personal rule of thumb is I take, after I've paid myself, 5% of whatever the total payment of a job was immediately goes into a business savings account. In a few months, you might find that you need another set of kit lenses, or you need a matte box, or you need some ND filters. It's really nice to have that money you put away months ago available at your fingertips now that you really needed to support your business. I'll finish this video off with what I think is the most important part of freelancing or starting your own videography business. Make it your own. Some people like corporate names, some people don't like corporate names. It really depends on who you're trying to target. Once you be you, who could be you but you? If you're not operating under your own name like I don't, Pick a name that really speaks to you. When a potential client looks at your brand, they should see you in that brand somewhere. But branding is a topic for a whole other video. If you're a successful freelancer and you used a method that wasn't anything close to what I said today, please leave a comment. I would love to hear about it and we can include it in a later video. And that's all for me today. Thank you for joining the film crew.